If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
And back again. My guest is Joachim Hagopian, independent journo, living the good life with his pet water buffalo in Bali. Uh, Maybe not. I always say that, but it always sounds romantic. At the moment, anywhere is romantic except here. It's been a wild, wild afternoon. Let me tell you. Uh, the Charlie Kirk assassination, Joachim. Thanks for joining us too, by the way. There's a lot of anomalous information. It's been put out by authorities. Tell us about this and why they are doing it.
Well, it seems like the government and the media, well, I would say legacy media, are on one side with a bogus story. And then there's a lot of alt news media outlets that are completely in disagreement with the official narrative that Tyler Robinson killed Kirk. Uh, so what we're trying to get across is the truth as we see it, as circumstances guide us into making our conclusions. And there's a vast majority out there in the world that are not believing the government false narrative.
It's pretty interesting. Even there's, tell me this: if you wanted to hide the truth and you released a bunch of theories or narratives, and each one sort of stood up, that would be a great way to hide the truth, wouldn't it? I mean, so maybe this is what they did this with COVID. They brought out everyone had their idea. It was lab leak. It was the DOD testing something. It was coming from outer space. Blah 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 blah, and each one was backed up by scientists. They'd say yes, that's how it happened. Same thing here, do you think?
Well, I think if you look a little deeper than the surface appearance of what their explanation is, you can easily find many flaws, many anomalies, many things that do not stack up with reality. And uh, and so, I mean, first of all, Kirk was a shill for a long time. They groomed him as a teenager, and he had this, of course, Turning Point USA, reaching out to the college age population of primarily inside America, to all the colleges, high schools, and he was financed right up until basically his quote alleged death uh, by very wealthy Jewish donors, many of them diaspora Jews, and many of them from Israel. He was offered $150 million from Netanyahu just recently before this incident on the 10th of September. So his job was to downgrade any kind of genocide talk that Israel's doing and emphasize how Christianity, certainly Zionist Christian, are totally for Israel no matter what. And he went off the reservation. Probably 2, 3 months beforehand, he became more publicly outspoken and and even made references to his peers, Candace Owens, one of them, that he felt threatened, that he was being bullied by the bully Netanyahu himself. Um, and so he feared for his life. He made those statements prior to the event on the September 10th. So, with that going in, you ask, Qui bono? Who benefits? Who gains? Who has the means to be able to accomplish this and get away with it? And you have to say, well, the assassination king on the earth is Israel. they've killed more people politically than any other entity, country, whatever you want to call it, than anybody else on earth. And so obviously, they're running into a lot of trouble amongst the younger populations that aren't buying their shit, killing a lot of Palestinians that are innocent. And so it's a PR angle that unfortunately it looks like Kirk was basically caught in the middle. He didn't want to go off the reservation, but I think his conscience was getting to him with the reality he was getting from all the audiences in the college population that were telling him, hey, this is genocide. You better get on the right side of history here. And I think eventually, despite all the money coming in, he was like I say, he was financed by Jewish donors from all over the place. And he knew that by speaking out, being critical of Netanyahu and genocide, that he would encounter lots of opposition. And, they've even come out with Bill Altman, who's a multi-billionaire, and he did an intervention with Kirk and his peers, and basically they yelled at him, "You better toe the line, or your ass is grass." In so many words, this is how it was taken. And then he went the very next day on an interview with Megyn Kelly and told her that he's getting all this flack, like she too, because she also has come out against the genocide. So he actually relayed to Megyn Kelly that he was under a lot of pressure by Israel to toe the line and not be critical of Israel. So there's all this mounting circumstantial evidence. But then if you look at the film on what happened on September 10th, there's a lot of anomalies there as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, they're also saying the two latest conspiracies or thoughts, not conspiracy thoughts, are there was another shooter who did that, or two, there were two shooters. It obviously is not Tyler Robinson. Tyler Robinson did not shoot Charlie Kirk. And by the way, as we get into this conversation, we were taken off YouTube for having this exact conversation with Johnny McNeil the other day. So we may get taken off again for having this conversation. And they said by having this conversation, we said that he didn't like Netanyahu. That was harassment. Go figure. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully there won't, because we're not harassing anybody. We're just discussing what might be, what could have been. So let's get back.
And there's a thing called free speech. It's not practiced as much as it used to be in America or the world for that matter. But free speech means that you can pontificate your opinion on based on what your perception is. Hey, and that's First Amendment right in America.
Well, if you look at our X, it didn't move for a year and a half. We moved to get away from it to try and do some sort of business, and we're getting the same sort of love and attention from X. Joachim, I must be a very, very bad person. I mean, I apologise for being so evil. Look at me.
I think you got that flip, buddy.
That's right. So let's get back to Tyler Robinson. He didn't do it. Two shooters or one shooter. We talked about it bouncing off his vest into his neck. Nah. What do you think?
Or potentially no shooters. And I've written two articles on this incident, and my second one actually is posing that it was all fake and that the real Kirk is still alive. The real Kirk is still alive. Yeah, I mean, there is uh, many videos, and we already know from the what was it, October of last year, we had that Butler, Pennsylvania incident where Trump, did a heroic moment after he was supposedly shot in the ear and the blood came out and all this. Well, that's a staged Hollywood production that took place then. And so they learned from it. They learned from they're hoaxes, they're false flags, and this also, I believe, was a staged false flag shooting that didn't involve bullets. You notice they haven't come up with a bullet yet. They say it was launched, which is total bullshit. Um, and so and there's no real body either. There's a rubber hand that the wife was like crying over, a couple of days later. But yeah, it looks like yeah, it looks like they have these quibs, the blood things that burst out. Now, there's also question that it could have been like airbag, and then they put in with the, they do CGI all the time now, and CGI basically can make a lot of blood. But here's the thing: when they took, and about 6, 7 guys gathered them up and took them out to the waiting SUV, and there was filming going on throughout that whole process, and no blood. No blood. How does a person get shot and then not even drip any blood in the film that was bringing him to the waiting SUV? And I don't believe he ever went to a hospital. There was no notice at all from any hospital. There's no autopsy. And, by law, they're supposed to do these things. Uh, but there was nothing. And who gave the first word that Kirk was shot? Who gave the first word? It wasn't even Trump. He was the second guy to do it. The first guy was Benjamin Netanyahu. And basically, all he's been saying is, oh, he's such a wonderful guy. And we didn't do it. We didn't do it. It's so obvious he's overcompensating because he knows the whole world knows that Israel had a lot to do with this incident on the 10th. And then the first official announcement that he died came from Trump. It was no hospital spokesperson or anybody like that. It was Trump. So my view and a lot of other people, based on the evidence we have, is that it was a staged false flag shooting to blame Israel or whoever, this Tyler guy. That's the official narrative. But the bottom line is I think he's alive. He's in, they go into a program where they can alter the face and lay him low, and I think that's probably what happened to him. I don't know that he is dead. Um, and a lot of people are in agreement that there's too many anomalies to suggest that it was a real shooting incident. Even witnesses close by were not believing. They felt it was staged, and they didn't see blood either.
Interesting. And I'm not discounting anything because at the moment we don't know. We saw a lot of people at a service, and that was very moving. And I thought, it was pretty wonderful to say the least. However, at the moment, we saw that lovely service. We've seen the headlines, we've seen people talking about it, but not much else. And I just wonder why nothing much else has come out from the FBI or from Netanyahu. I mean, who knows? But a lot of people, though, hated everything about Charlie Kirk. I mean, even look at Jimmy Kimmel, to his 23,000 audience, which is a pretty bad audience if you think about it in the US, to have late night show with Jimmy Kimmel. Wake up, he's on. 23,000, that's what he gets. Anyway, he's back again. But the amount of hatred, take away, forget who that Charlie Kirk was shot. To talk about someone who's in the public arena that supposedly has passed away, to talk about him or her the way they have done, it's despicable. Why this hatred from America towards somebody like Charlie Kirk?
Well, one line, divide and rule. The oppressors, the controllers of this earth that, through blackmail and bribery of every government puppet, they maintain division, and especially America has become their target. They want to take down America by turning America against itself. And so, through the left versus right paradigm, Democrat versus Republican, it's on and on. All over the world, there's basically a two-party political system that's controlled by the same controllers. So they just keep devising all these divide and rule pretext for all this conflict. And so I believe that the whole thing's been staged as far as the crazies Kimmel's coming out with all these kind of outrageous statements to piss a lot of people off. He, by the way, he's got his job back. He's
He
going on.
has. He's back.
And in a way, free speech means that you can be an asshole and say all kinds of bad stuff that is even false, but free speech. But
But
anyway, so
he only had 23,000. He's except for one when he started, he had a few, and each year it's gone down, 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 down,
yeah,
down.
yeah.
So that
No,
was
the guy was hanging by a thread, and ABC was ready to fire his ass anyway. I mean,
yes,
that was
but
the bottom line.
yeah, not
Uh,
anymore.
but yeah, I believe that they want civil war in America. They want World War out there, World War III, and they're going, you know, they're still going strong on World War III in the Middle East and in Europe, and probably at some point in Asia too. Um, so, yeah, the agenda is a war agenda, and especially a war also at home on domestic soil between the left and the right. So it fits right in with all of that.
The history, CIA history with the University of Utah, where Charlie was shot, it's got a bit of history. Tell us about that history with the University of Utah. Do you like that?
You think of Utah, Mormon state. Mormons. These are good God fearing, believing people. Uh, but my understanding is that there's a lot of real shady stuff that's going also on. Well, for one, what about 3 weeks before the September 10th incident, Cash Patel goes into Salt. Well, he didn't even go there, but he fired the Salt Lake City regional director of Utah FBI. That's very suspicious in and of itself. Because when you go in and do a false flag operation, you don't want somebody in there that's been that knows the ropes. And the woman that he fired, by the way, was very highly respected amongst the FBI. And so, if anybody's going to try and make sure that a false flag doesn't happen in her neighborhood, it's going to be the FBI director that was fired. And he plugged his own person in there. So that's a little suspicious too. But what I was also talking about with Utah is that there is a lot of drugs going on. I mean, you think, oh, Mormon, they're strict Christian, and they don't go into all that drug. No, but that's an outlet for drugs being brought into the country. George Webb, who's a lot of people know of him as a investigative journalist. He actually has come out and said it's almost like Iran Contra, except it should be called Utah Contra, where they're bringing in drugs, and there's a lot of people in the government in the state of Utah that have a lot to hide because this drug uh, pushing that's going on in that state, because it goes outlet from there to other
Mm.
parts of the United States. And of course, we know about fentanyl and all the rest. But anyway, he said that's a center for the drug uh, outlet, and it's kind of in the west. You can go east of there, and it's the and it's the middle America. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Utah, definitely.
What do you make of the all the drones they've been filmed, and in fact, they even have the public data on this plane that was circling at 600 feet. So a bunch of drones flying around the actual scene, spy planes, and the links with Butler. What do you make of all this?
Well, I think they have the drones going. I mean, drones have revolutionized modern warfare now. I mean, what's going on in Ukraine and all that, but also for surveillance purposes, of course. And my understanding is there was at least one drone seen overhead in Utah as well at that incident. Uh, but I also want to mention another thing that actually supports uh, that Kirk could be alive, and that is there was a plane 12 minutes away from the incident that is an airport, and there was a mysterious plane that took their transponder off, which means that
Mhm.
you're, off all, following tracking of the plane. And there is a strong suspicion amongst the number of people, I brought it out in my article, that yes, they could have taken Charlie away and quietly, brought him away from that scene, and nobody would know of it, other than the fact that the plane belongs to another Jewish billionaire, and and I think that needs some investigation. But you won't find the FBI following up on that. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to say the least. What about the trans killers, as the Trump administration has indicated it will do? Should this phenomenon be taken seriously?
It seems so odd that all these false narratives always involve nowadays these transgender patsies. It's very strange. Uh, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like they're on purpose
Mm.
making the population of America not believe them, uh, because it's so ridiculous. There was of course, a mass shooting in Minneapolis 3 weeks ago, and it was a supposed transgender. It keeps going on over and over. The last few mass shootings have been all transgender. That it's like we want to get angry at the left and the transgender movement and all of this. And so, yeah, let's have the bad guy here shooting him a transgender lover. And obviously, that's apparently what it is.
Mm.
If in fact there's a relationship with a roommate who is converting over from a male to a female. Uh, but yeah, it's very odd. But you want to get the left versus the right, and the left are comprised of a lot of people that are into that kind of movement, multi-gender, and so it's a divisive way of pitting a group against another.
It's interesting. I mean, attractive but deadly. That's what the new movie could be called.
Yeah.
Rambut. Rambut. Um, the Antifa are now regarded, they've been declared terrorist. What took them so long to do this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think that George Soros, who basically funds Antifa
Mm-hmm.
and others like him, uh, they wanted the left to rise up, and they put a lot of teachers. I got a son here. Uh, they have a lot of teachers in the schools brainwashing the younger generations into the whole multi-gender thing and sexual confusion amongst young population. It's all part of the plan, I think, to uh, pit one group against the others. The people, I mean, the bulk of Americans are more conservative. But so what do? They they falsely put a stolen election, Biden in power, that allows this to go full gamut. The left and the transgender go crazy. Well, we're defending them, and if you're a bigot if you're against any of this. I mean, it's just one group versus another, back and forth. You vote for a Democrat president, then you get a Republican, then you Democrat. It's the same old, baloney.
Yeah, and apparently Soros's son is even wilder than Soros is, which is a bit
Yeah,
scary.
yeah, he's financing a lot of it too.
Yeah, and they're ramping it up, and he's only very young, so he's got plenty of years to annihilate the planet. By the way, that sun is what that is. It's a halo, because we know how pure you are. Um, but okay, back to being sensible. The Soros connection. Does this enable then? Is this a reason or an excuse or an opportunity to go after Soros?
This might be, and I hope they do. And to basically declare Antifa a terrorist organization, I have no problem with that. They've been up to a lot of trouble over the years in America, especially with the riots from a few years back. Uh, but yeah, you know, Soros has been up to you know revolution or purple revolutions as they call it in so many countries,
Mm,
and they're anti-USA, and they want to no, they actually are for the USA, but they break up other countries so that they can be controlled by the USA. We see it in a lot of, well, look for Moldova. Oh, they're big now in Moldova. They're in the early stages of a revolution there. They've been trying in Georgia for a while. They've tried it in Armenia. Armenia is now basically given up part of its own homeland for the U.S. control. So I mean, this is what they do. They split up all these countries, and so that they can control them to encircle the enemy, the Eastern powers, Russia, China, Iran. And you look around the globe, and that's exactly what the U.S. is doing. They are losing their control over hegemony on this earth. They are not the sole superpower. It's multipolar, and they're not going down without a fight. And so, yeah, we see the divide and rule between the West and the East
mm.
in action.
Um, there was an interview today on Fox. Brett, someone his name is, is quite good, but normally very straight laced, and he was talking to a US official whose name has escaped me because I can sort of remember. I just glanced at it, and they were saying this guy was saying that the war, Ukraine v Russia, which is NATO v Russia, will continue for quite some time. And the guy interviewing him said, "So we continue then to supply weapons so that Ukraine can achieve peace." And I thought, what a great thing to say, because it shows you how stupid it is, because Ukraine will not beat Russia. It will just prolong the war. And what he was saying, though, was that it doesn't make any sense. You're not going to win it unless you want to just keep the thing going, give them weapons. If you want it to stop, say enough's enough. The US doesn't want this to finish. Europe does not want this to finish. Where
Right.
do you think we go to from here? Because it can't keep going. Something has to happen. And I hear people saying that there's bombers flying around with big bombs and all sorts of things. That's what will happen next. I don't think so, but something has to happen. What do you think will happen?
Are you talking about with Ukraine war?
Yeah, with Ukraine,
Yeah,
and Russia and the US and Europe and all those. Look
yeah.
at all those.
I think Russia is going to launch offensives. Uh, they've already taken so much territory from Ukraine. Ukraine is on their last legs. I think they're going to try and finish it. I hope anyway. Uh, but at the same time that Trump basically made promises to within 24 hours finish this war, he's continued supplying weapons and money for Ukraine. So that tells you that he really isn't what he claimed to be, peace president. And
Mm.
also, he's busy giving $5 more billion worth of weapons to Israel. So what does that say? I mean, the U.S. is funding wars around the world.
Yep. And the other thing, just before we go, because I know that sun is driving you nuts at the moment, and it's starting to look like a Stephen King novel, or a movie. But the Grant Newsham was on yesterday. He's a ex-colonel from the Marines and does a lot of advising and all sorts of think tanks, and he's very knowledgeable. And he was dismayed at Trump trying to do an agreement re TikTok with China. He said the Chinese are playing Trump at the moment, and then he made a couple of quotes regarding governments around the world, in particular Australia. He said, "Once upon a time, hypocrite was a bad word, but it seems to be the only word you can describe many governments." So looking at TikTok, Trump trying to curry favour, I suppose, in one way, coming to an agreement with TikTok or with Xi about TikTok. Is China playing Trump not for TikTok but for a greater purpose? And do you think hypocrisy is the key word to describe most governments these days?
Well, I would have to definitely say hypocrisy is the key word, especially U.S. Government. But probably yes, countries all over the world, their governments are rather corrupt and not being very honest. Uh, and I would even say that, I've often said actually that the Eastern powers, the so-called enemy of the West, um, they may be just the good cop, bad cop. The West plays the role of aggressor, and the East plays the role of, well, we're going to restrain ourselves from going to war. We're doing our best, but they're demonized by the West. All the
Mm.
Western governments. So, you know, uh, but it's an interesting thing with TikTok. Did you know that there's Israeli Jews that are buying TikTok now?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's one way of making sure that they don't run away with too much off the reservation of the Zionist realm.
Well, can you imagine? I mean, because there was a report about Israel paying Google or YouTube. I think it was Google, which is still part of YouTube is part of it, and that they were paying them to make sure that if you put in a search engine request for something on Palestinians or Charlie Kirk or whatever, it would throw up something entirely not what you were looking for. And I know it's very bad of me to say that YouTube and Google and Israel could be terrible, terrible companies and people and governments. And I'm sorry about that, especially with your halo at the moment. Uh, and, and
Yeah,
and if we keep
censorship is what they do.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty wild. But if we keep talking, I'm sure that you're going to move so far to your left you won't be in frame. So what we there you are. That's just brilliant. If somebody wants to find out more about you, Joachim, how do they do that?
You can find every chapter of my 5 books at pedoempire.org. You can find every one of my articles at thegovernmentrag.com, jamesjfetzer.org, and a few others. And then I do a Revolution radio spot on
Mhm.
Fridays.
Fantastic. Like the shirt too, by the way. Aloha to you.
Yeah,
Um, it looks pretty good. Say hello to your pet water buffalo and all that sort of thing. What's his name? What do you call it? Fido or Larry?
I
What
don't
do you?
know. I call it Bali's sun on my face.
Sorry about that. We'll have to organise God next time to make sure that
Maybe we should do a little bit earlier from now on
I think
without
so.
the sun. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Or you could face the other way.
Yeah, but I prefer the wall.
Joachim Hagopian, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Have a lovely evening, and we'll catch you next week. This
All right.
is, thank you, sir. This is, we got through it. Thank you very much. This is The World Today.